I cordially invite you all to this webinar on the subject career choice by Mr. Revant Multipuri. I now request our coordinator, Mr. S. Suresh Babu Garu, to speak few words.
Hello, good morning everyone.
Good morning, sir.
I welcome you to this webinar on current trends in software industry and career choice by Revan. The main objective of this session is how to build a good career in the software. The students who want to enter into the software field and what are the different opportunities are available and what are the different softwares and different things are available. And there are so much complexities there in the software and hardware industry. And so in order to do that, and which choices are there, which are the different routes to enter, is a trouble thing for the new people, new students, right? And we already know that the software, I think no jobs are there without software. So every field, the software is required, right? And which software we have to choose is the difficult thing, right? And as we already know, software, the main thing, the software is like it became a part and parcel of our life, like electricity, right? So it enhances and modifies our human life. And not only that, living things, it enter into the non-living things like also like IoT, right? So there nothing, it left nothing, right? So to break this complexity, right? So we have different few people like Revan, right? So they come forward and they are giving the different paths to enter into the software industry, right? And definitely, I know the past few years, Revan is a good person and he has some unique features, right? And once he get anything, right, any task, right, until unless it is not completed, he won't leave. Definitely, he will give a good tips to enter into the choice, right? So, without wasting our time, right? Definitely,
ఇంకా
after
మాట్లాడద్దు
completing this seminar, I will promise that whatever you have doubts, right, definitely it will be clear, right? And again, I welcome to all, right? Right, and thanks for registering and welcome to all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Going into the session, I would like to share some illustrious achievements of Mr. Revant with you. He completed his BTech from NVGAR IST in the computer science stream. He had an year experience as full stack developer, system engineer, and Microsoft student partner. At present, he is with Pi as a full stack developer and Alexa enthusiast. That's a small introduction about Mr. Raven. I don't want to prolong it to waste your time. And I now request Mr. Raven to take the session. Mr. Raven, the session is all yours.
okay so hi everyone, so this is Raven. So I'm really glad to see you all here, like after a couple of years coming back to the college, not actually coming back but virtually coming back to the college, meeting all the students and the faculties also who I know, Suresh Babu sir, who has been a brilliant mentor during our college session. All right. So before I go, I just want to ask quickly a some question to the organizer. How many people are here, like the classification of first year, second years, and third years, fourth years?
Actually, that was not accurate because we have students from many colleges.
Okay.
So we can't segregate them in such a manner.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So the session today that I'll be sharing on is going to be accurate for each and every, irrespective of your year and your department. If you are looking forward to take your transition of career into software industry, then this session is right for you. All right. So this session is basically going to be me talking a lot of things and showing you exactly what the path looks like. And yeah, we do have a small presentation for the namesake purpose, and I'll be going through the slides just very quickly, and then we can get on to the usual details. And cool. Let me just share my screen and we can get it started. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. Is everyone able to see my screen?
It's Revant, it is definitely. Yes, Revant, you are visible.
Sorry? I'm hearing my own echo, sir. Somebody has put me on speaker and
Suresh sir,
Hello?
can you please mute yourself, sir? It is re-echoing. Thank you, sir.
you're able to see my screen?
No, not yet.
Not yet, huh?
Yes, we are able to see.
Okay, I just opened the presentation. You're able, just let me
It
know
is
if. Hello.
Yeah.
Revant, okay.
Okay,
Is it
fine.
visible?
Okay. All right. So, a little bit introduction about myself. Like your organizer said, this is Raven Muripudi, and I'm a computer science graduate from NBKR College itself, class of 2014. And before I get on to the career detail, I was in CSE and I had a very good rapport with every faculty. And then I transitioned myself into a software engineer at TCS by cracking a competition called Code Vita. And then after working in TCS Chennai for 1 year, I moved into a product-based startup called as Pipe, wherein we build software products for the American construction market. And yes, we are into the American industry, though. Uh, so that's about it. And let's just go quickly on what are we going to talk about today. Like there are, as you know, software industry is just not comprised of one single thing. You can name n number of things, people working in n number of roles and people working in n number of positions and caters and everything whatnot. So the major ones that I will be focusing on just a gist of it. There are actually much more than what I've listed on the screen right now, but these are the major ones that I would like to cover. The one being web development and mobile, AI, IoT, cloud computing, ethical hacking, chatbots, and big data. Yes, you could argue the list is very comprehensive, but there are other things also like blockchain and some other things. But I don't want to get into those details because those are not exactly my area of expertise. But the main thing that we'll be focusing today on is web development and cloud computing, since these two are my area of expertise. The other ones we would give you an overview on, and then we'll move on to what exactly career choices you should pick and what exactly is right for you and how do you get there and how do you crack interviews. So yeah, sure. Let's just get started. And just a heads up, this session is going to be again me talking a lot and showing stuff rather than me going to the presentation and talking about. So this is what we're going to do right now. The first and foremost thing that each and every single person should be knowing if they want to pursue a career in software industry is algorithms. They are like your best friend. You should never ever forget them. Like I guess we studied them in our third semester. I think in the second year, first semester, we had this thing called advanced data structures. The people from CSE would understand it. Second semester, third semester, or fourth semester, we really didn't pay attention to that subject at all. But little that I knew after coming into the software industry, that would actually be my help. What do you say? Go to any problem is your turn to friend is algorithms and data structures. That's how you should look at these things. The person who is really good at algorithms and data structures can basically solve any sort of a problem that has been given to him better than others and can prove himself and can get a really good job than other people in the industry. So let me just quickly show you what exactly I mean by algorithms and data structures. And I'm pretty sure each and every one of you are at least aware of this site called Geeks for Geeks. This is where you could learn what I'm talking about, algorithms and data structures. They basically have A to Z solutions on almost each and every single problem that you could think of. Like they have categories, they have company-wide preparations, they have patterns, they have interview experiences. Like yeah, people actually post about the interview experiences and the problems asked in those interviews so that we could learn. This is this should actually be your go-to site for any sort of an algorithm and data structure problem. And the next thing you should be doing is practice. Like, right, mathematics you don't get by looking at the problem, you get by solving the problem. The same way with programming also, you don't get by watching a tutorial or doing something. The only way you get the problems is by practicing over and over and again. In mathematics there can be like there can be only one approach to solve a problem, multiple approaches to solve a problem. The same thing with the programming also. You can solve a problem with one solution, or you can have multiple solutions also. That's the same thing. And the next stuff I would like to talk about is called competitive programming. So basically what this means is you will have a set of problems and a time, like basically 3 hours or 6 hours or something. You'll have some set of problems and you have to solve those problems in that set of time with a solution of your own, and you can code that in your own particular language basically. The main example would be TCS Code Vita, the one which everybody is aware of. Basically what they have is a 6-hour format, and they'll probably give like 6 to 8 problems, and those 6 to 8 problems involve a huge array. They can be consisting of simple algorithms, simple data structures, or complex bit manipulation, graph algorithms, all that stuff. You will have to solve at least one problem to get an interview with them. That's how important your algorithms and data structures would help out, the knowledge on them. What exactly is competitive programming? Well, it's just one step further. You know your algorithms, you know your data structures. How exactly would you implement them if you have thrown a real problem at? Like, let's say your problems in your college would basically be implement a linked list. That's not how you will be asked in an interview. That's not how you will be asked in a competition. It will be completely different. You will not be as straightforward questions. How will you know that? Well, if you start solving problems in competitive programming, you will start seeing a wide variety of problems. That's about it for now. I'll get back to competitive programming later, but first I would like to talk about the trends. Mainly, since my role is a web developer, basically a full stack developer, I would like to talk about that first. Alright, so basically web development, as everybody is aware of, it's not just HTML and CSS. No, HTML CSS doesn't make you a web developer as everybody thinks. It's just the look and feel of the website that you get by learning HTML and CSS, nothing more than that. The main thing you should know is, using HTML and CSS, you could become a good designer. That's what I can tell you. At most 99.9% of the times, there are only roughly 15 to 20 HTML tags that you will be using in your whole lifetime. The B tag, the P tag, all the hashtags, the header tags, all that stuff. There are just 15 to 20. And if you come to CSS, there are probably like 30 to 50 properties that you will know. That's it, not more than that at all. The main thing starts with JavaScript. You should basically know how exactly JavaScript works. You cannot jump into a framework like Angular, React, Vue, all of that without learning the basics of JavaScript. That's the first and foremost thing that you should remember. And this is the first and foremost mistake that I observe in newbies. Like, they get excited with all the buzzwords like artificial intelligence and React.js, Angular. Hey, that's very cool, I should learn that. No, just get your basics right first. Learn JavaScript first. Learn it to a manner that if in case you're asked to develop an app, you can do it in plain JavaScript only. You should learn it to that extent, and only then you should start learning some other framework or some other library. The main thing that I would like you to know about is FreeCodeCamp. This is what they say, the Bible. You could basically consider this as a Bible for web development. So basically what you have in this is, one second, let me just log in. So this is what you get when you first register on this website. You start with basic web development over here. You start with the basic HTML and CSS as you see, and at each and every... Could somebody go on mute? I'm hearing myself. Sorry, thank you. So at each and every single section, you will get a certificate, which is actually really good. A certificate from FreeCodeCamp is really valued in the LinkedIn profile, by the LinkedIn community, because when you do FreeCodeCamp certification, that actually means you have done it yourself. That actually means you know what you're up to and you know what you're doing basically. And at each and every section end, you have a project that you can showcase. We'll come to the portfolio later on, but you should remember that at each and every section after you finish, you basically have a project. They will give you a certain project that you should do, and they go through a simple evaluation procedure whether the project is right or not. That's basically what free code camp is. Then you have next all the JavaScript, and I have not done everything since I know most of that I did not do. But if in case you are a person who is looking to learn JavaScript and web development, this is where I would like you guys to have your first step in. Like spend some time, like every day, 1 to 2 hours on this website. Go through the challenges. Each and every challenge is going to be very simple. Like this, there are going to be some, if the what do you say, some question and an answer. Like how you need to implement that, and you have to implement that over here in the code base. Like this right hand side is the editor where you basically need to code, and this is actually open source website. This is not a paid version or something. This is actually open source, and everything in this website is help built by the community itself. No person takes spending their valuable time on this, or they are not getting paid actually. So this entire thing is open source. How cool is that? And next thing comes the front end. Once your JavaScript basic foundation is fine, that's when you need to start learning front end. Like the ones I told you. You have Angular, you have yeah, this is from Google. You have Angular. This is a framework, and you have React. This is from Facebook. This is just a library, front end library, and you have another thing called as Vue. These three frameworks are the ones that are ruling the world right now. If in case you want to become a a web developer, you have to go through these phases. First, you need to become a front-end developer or a back-end developer and get experience with a database, preferably a SQL database or a NoSQL database. These three are the frameworks or the libraries that you have on the front-end side to become a front-end developer. Get your HTML and CSS basics, and then go on to the JavaScript, learn the stuff very deeply, and then start picking up a framework of your choice, Angular, React, or Vue. But I would personally recommend each and everyone to go with React. It's simple to use, and it has lot more community supporting it rather than any other thing. Angular, the first people, sorry, if in case you are starting out, you can basically get overwhelmed with the amount of features and things that Angular provides. There is a high chance that you might not understand what you're going through. That's exactly what I felt when I was learning Angular. So I would recommend you people to go ahead and learn React, because if in case you have Stack Overflow and yeah, this is the most sought out yeah, as you can see, the full stack developer are the most sought out role positions across the whole world, and then comes the back end and then comes the front end. Basically, if you are a full stack developer, that means you are experienced with front end, you are experienced with back end, you are experienced with at least one single database. And coming to the front end, what is the one that sorry, what are the frameworks or technologies that are basically sought out are React.js, Angular, and Vue.js. That I can show in a particular, yeah, see the web frameworks. So basically, jQuery, this has been a long time, so you don't have to worry about jQuery because nobody codes right now in jQuery. But since still it's one of the top paid languages, being React. And the other things that you should know about is Node.js. That actually is a backend JavaScript framework. You should be familiar with that if in case you are transitioning to a web developer. Like you have multiple paths. You basically have multiple paths. Like one, you have where you have multiple languages like Java. You have another language like Python. You have language like .NET. All these sorry, C Sharp. These are multiple languages that you have, and each and every language you have some specific frameworks or libraries that would help you to become a full stack developer. Like for example, if in case you go with Java, you have something called a Spring framework, and Spring like this. And if in case you go with Python, you have something called as Django or Flask, all these things. If in case you go with C Sharp, you have .NET. If in case you go with PHP, you have something called as Laravel, all these stuff. But don't try to learn all the languages at once. Take one language and make it your own. Like for example, since you people are in, you would have experience in Java or Python right from your first year, or C or C++. Take one single language like Java and learn it thoroughly and start knowing the in and out of it, and go with the framework. Start implementing that. more of that portfolio later on. Coming back to the front end, yeah, this is the website that I suggest you people to take a look at, and all the other stuff are just like icing on the cake. What exactly you need to do is to become a full stack developer, and this has a very active forum. Like you could ask a question and you can get a reply in pretty much seconds itself. So that's how responsive this is. All right, coming back, you have some trends in web development. Like for example, there is something called as mean stack developer. Basically, what this means is M stands for MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database. Express E stands for Express.js, which is actually a framework built on top of Node.js. And A stands for Angular, the front end library, and N stands for Node.js, the what do you say backend. So basically, this mean stack development profile would classify you under the role of full stack because you know front end, you know back end, you know database, and you're combining each and everything mean stack. And there is something called as merge stack also. In merge stack developer, there's only one difference. Like instead of learning Angular, you learn React and you become a merge stack developer. Like this is basically these two are the most sought out skill sets on the internet right now. Mean and merge. That's something you should take up as your priority. Yes, I do understand you people want to see other trends also. Like no, I don't want to become a web developer. I want to become a machine learning scientist or a data science person. I want to become a cloud computing expert. I want to go big data. I want to go blockchain. Yeah, those are all the other things that you could have in parallel. But this is something, the basics actually. This is the basics. You should be knowing at least these sort of basics. And coming back, I think that's mostly about web development what we know. And yeah, don't forget this is a website that you really don't want to miss on. And coming next, what is the next trend that we have is mobile development. I'm pretty sure everybody is aware of Android, right? In case you want to do mobile development, there are not much choices for you in mobile development. Like you basically become an Android developer or you basically become an iOS developer. Yeah, there are some other things that makes you become both Android and iOS. There is something called as Flutter that's built by Google, which basically lets you design your own applications, and they are what do you say independent of the platform. Like you can execute them in Android, you can have it in iOS, you can have it in Windows version, you can have it in basically all sort of flavors, not just one flavor. This is some advanced concept, but if in case you are looking to learn, I would recommend you at least learn the basics of one mobile development. If in case you are looking to transition yourself into a mobile development person, just pick up one, Android or iOS. If in case you are going with Android, you should be familiar with Kotlin or Java. I would recommend you to start learning a language called Kotlin, since this is actually the primary language now for Android. And yeah, sorry. And the other thing is iOS. Everybody is aware of iOS, and the languages that are used in iOS are C# and Objective-C. Sorry, Swift. If in case you want to become an iOS developer, that's what you need to concentrate on. Objective-C and Swift. And coming back to the next trend, AI. So there's actually, you can say that artificial intelligence is something like an umbrella. There are much more things than it looks for that. Like you have buzzwords like data science, you have things like machine learning, deep learning, and data analysts, and all that stuff. So basically, everything comes under this one single term, artificial intelligence. Whether you want to transition yourself into a data scientist or a machine learning engineer or a deep learning person or big data, a part of big data also comes under artificial intelligence only, a sort of that, because they're both sort of correlated, you could say that. And if in case you want to learn, you want to become yourself, you want to transition your career into artificial intelligence, one main language that you should focus for sure is Python. That's the go-to language if in case you want to become any role in AI. Python should be on your list to learn. And after you start learning Python, you can go ahead and start learning the libraries and the frameworks inside Python. Like if in case you want to become a machine learning person, there is something called as TensorFlow. This is from Google. You can learn this library, and using Python, you can build your own model and you can participate online, you can test your model, you can get public data sets. There are many data sets that are public online. You can just Google the word data sets and you will find lots and millions and millions and millions of data sets online. You can train your models, you can go on the forums on the open source community website discussions, open discussion, and start asking your questions and all that stuff. But basically this is not my area of expertise, but I'm just giving you an overview. There are other frameworks and libraries called NumPy, Pandas. All these are the libraries that help you in becoming a machine learning person or a data science one or anything. And you should have some knowledge, not some, I would say considerable amount of knowledge in a database. Basically writing SQL queries like the MySQL database or any database you should be basically familiar with if in case you want to become a machine learning, because all at the end it comes to the data that you have. How do you extract data is what matters the most. And how do you extract data? Simple, you use database, right? You go with some database or you use big data, extract your data, and that's when you build your machine learning models. So you should be familiar with writing queries. You should be really good at writing queries. That's one thing. And the next one is IoT. Yeah, this is also some sort of a buzzword. Like you go to a hackathon nowadays, and most of the ones that people do is either related to machine learning or related to IoT. That's it. There are not many other projects that are developed when you go to a hackathon basically. IoT is what separates you from the rest of the crowd. Like it's not completely unrelated. Yeah, you could. What exactly IoT does is you can have anything basically get connected to the internet and that performs as an IoT device. Like for example, robotics, all that stuff basically comes under a part of IoT is on robotics also. You have something called Arduino Uno, you have Raspberry Pi, all these stuff. You can basically connect a small device like even your what do you say remote control car. You can control your remote control car to an Arduino Uno or a Raspberry Pi and control it. So that's also becoming an IoT device. That's basically what it is. And then coming to cloud computing, this is another major buzzword. Cloud computing. What exactly is cloud? Like basically you store your data, but there's actually more than what I'm saying right now on cloud computing. It basically it comes down to the point that you store your data in the cloud. That's basically what we know. But if in case you're familiar with something called as AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud Platform, you would know that cloud is much more than that. And this AWS, if in case you are looking to transition yourself into a cloud practitioner or something, you should be familiar with one of the cloud services at least and the basic concept of cloud services. AWS, or you can start with AWS, or you can start with Microsoft Azure, or you can start with Google Cloud Platform, which is basically called as GCP, Google Cloud Services or Google Cloud Platform. Make an account, but when I tell you this, remember, when you make an account in any of the cloud platforms, do not never ever share your credentials with any person, or do not store those credentials in a place where they are publicly accessible. Because if anybody gets hold of your credentials of your AWS account or Azure account or GCP, you can end up being billed $10,000 or even more than that in one single month. That's exactly how it does. People can log onto your account using those credentials. They can create virtual machines, they can create some high powerful virtual machines, and they can start mining bitcoins. And you will be responsible for that. So that's a note of precaution. When you create an AWS account, make sure that you don't store your credentials or you don't give away your credentials to your friends or any person basically. Just store them safe. That's what I want you to guys know. There are many products, there are many concepts that you need to be aware of if in case you want to become a cloud practitioner. You should be basically aware of even some concepts of networking also, the TCP, UDP, DNS, and Route 53. All these networking concepts also you should be aware of if in case you want to become a cloud practitioner. That's just one, what do you say, that's just the tip of the iceberg. If in case I start talking about cloud, I just cannot stop because this is actually way too much to talk about cloud that we won't be able to cover in this session. But once you go to a website and start seeing what are the services, what exactly is cloud, what are all that you could do, Well, trust me, you'll be astonished or you would even be thrilled to start learning about them. This is about cloud basically. And coming to the next one, ethical hacking. Well, I keep getting queries on what exactly ethical hacking is, how can you become an ethical hacker. Well, I can say you this, I'm not 100% sure on how you can become an ethical hacker because that was never my area of expertise. But basically, what ethical hacking is, there are several distinctions of people. Like, there are like white hat hackers, there are grey hat, there are black hat. The ones you want to become are the white hat hackers. The ethical hackers are the ones that basically hack systems, organization systems, find loopholes and vulnerabilities, and report to the organization without doing any damage to the business. That's what you want to become. And you should be very well aware of Linux shell scripts, or you should be familiar with some flavors of Linux. Mainly Kali Linux is what I'm thinking. And there are some, what do you say, certifications that help you on the way. There is this certification called CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker, that basically starts your foundation if in case you want to become one. So that's much about ethical hacking. I don't have much more data on ethical hacking. I'm sorry for that. And the next one is chatbots. Yes, you could argue that chatbots sort of fall under some artificial intelligence. Like you have, I'm sure you must have heard about Alexa, or you should have heard about Google Home Mini. Like these are all basically chatbots. You talk something and it replies to that. How? There are a complicated group of algorithms that basically work when you speak something. This falls under one more umbrella of AI called as natural language processing. Basically, when you speak something, it analyzes, breaks down the text, it takes the semantic meaning of you speak, and it compares everything to to what people have previously spoken, and it gives you some relevant results. All this happens in the cloud. As I told you, everything in computer science is basically interconnected. You cannot have one without the other, most of the times. In these chatbots, you have something like this, and these voice devices. And yeah, you could build your own chatbots also. These are just normal voice devices. You can build normal chatbot. For example, you could build a chatbot for your own personal WhatsApp. You could build a chatbot for your Facebook application. You can build a chatbot for Telegram. You can build a chatbot for Discord. All these you can do. And the languages, there are actually humongous amount of languages that you could build your chatbots in. There is not one specific language that you should be familiar with. You can build using Java. You can build using JavaScript. You can build using Python. There are many number of languages and many number of tools using which you can build chatbots. And all of this have really high market value. And coming to the last one, big data. This is like major trend, right? Big data. So what exactly is big data? Well, when you consider big data, it falls under the main thing that extracts any structured, unstructured data formats, making some sense out of it, and analyzing it, and providing some business requirements so that your sales and revenue can basically be boosted. Not just for business, it can be used in many other domains like healthcare industry, like banking domain, and the government sector. And for example, if in case you take disaster management also, that's where big data comes into picture. You basically learn the 5 V's of big data. There are something called as the basic 5 V's of big data, called as velocity, veracity, volume, and all that things. You should be aware of these concepts. Like you can consider them as data types, as important as data types in our normal languages, big data. And then you go on and learn some framework like Hadoop, Spark, all this stuff. I'm pretty sure you people might have at least heard of the term Hadoop. So you basically learn them and you transition yourself into a big data developer. That's about it. And you have other stuff also like blockchain, and you have SAP. Basically, they all come under the same umbrella model also. And blockchain is more complicated than it actually looks. I don't want to get into those details because that's not at all my area of expertise. But yeah, you could always look up for that. These are basically the most of the major trends. And coming next, yeah, as I told, algorithms. You can never ever forget how exactly algorithms and what exactly data structures and algorithms are. You should be familiar with almost all the basic data structures, like example stacks, queues, linked lists, trees, graphs. These are the common data structures that you definitely need to be aware of. If in case you're not, I really recommend you start studying them, because at the end, your knowledge on data structures is what makes you a perfect, makes you a good software engineer. Like, and mostly each and every single interview, your first round or your second round, most of the rounds will be on algorithms and data structures only. Like, don't take me light. When I say interviews, they definitely will target your skills on algo and data structures. Any single interview will target these basically. And coming to computer programming, the place where you can shine, the place where you can learn these algorithms and data structures even better, is there are some sites like something called as Codeforces, and these are the sites where there are contests wherein you can compete. Like, you will have problems statements. You choose a particular language, you build your algorithms, or you build your solution, you submit your solution and check if in case your problem statement solves the test cases or not. If in case it doesn't solve the test case, they will throw you an error and you again go back to solving. And this is one thing. And the other website is CodeChef. These two are my personal favorites. Like, I would recommend anybody starting to go with Codeforces and CodeChef. Yeah, you could argue there are others also like HackerRank, HackerEarth, all that stuff, but we'll get to that later. CodeChef, Codeforces, these are primarily the best. And one thing that I really like in CodeChef is the one they are running right now, something called as DS, Data Structures and Algorithm Learning Series. Like, if you are a beginner to algo and data structures, this is where I want you guys to start. So basically, every single week they have, ever since the quarantine started, every single week they have one particular, they pick up a section and they post problems for that particular section, and at the end of the week they make a video tutorial on that, and they make an editorial where you can read the solutions of all the problems and you can implement them. For example, if I show you, this is how normal problem statement would look like. No, this is actually very basic problem statement. This is not how a normal problem statement would look like in a, what do you say, in a normal competition. It would be much more complex. But these are your footsteps. You start with the normal, very simple things called as time complexity and space complexity. You start with flowchart, and then you slowly start learning each and every single data structure and the operations on each and every data structure. You solve the problems and the data structures, and there are algorithms like divide and conquer, backtracking, dynamic programming, and all that thing you should be basically aware of if in case you want to become a really good developer and you want to get a really nice job. This is what I recommend you. Go to CodeChef, register on the website, and start learning these things, or start solving the problems listed in these things. And they have contests. Each and every single site have contests that happen each and every single week. Sometimes they have twice in a week or twice in a week or something. And if in case you, this is one other website that I would like you guys to know. And yeah, even these people have contests. Like, every single website they have contests. And the more the websites, basically every website varies on the problem statements. Like, you get a new perspective. Each and every single website, they have their own style, they have their own flair of designing a problem statement. The more the websites you see, the more your experience will be when you actually attend an interview. Because when you attend an interview, you don't expect to see the same problem statement, right? It will be twisted. And if in case you are actually thinking of going with building up your mathematical skills for programming, this is a website I would like you guys to take a look at, Project Euler. The problems in this are, each and every problem has a, what they say, mathematics concept associated with it. Like, as you know, mathematics and programming, they're not very different. You solve mathematics using a problem, you solve programming using an algorithm. And what do you do? What do you use in an algorithm? Basically, you again use mathematics. The stronger your mathematics foundation concepts, the better you can actually become as a programmer. This is what I suggest you guys. And there are other websites also, something like TopCoder. These are also the websites that actually help you in becoming a competitive programmer also. But yeah, the main ones that I would recommend any person that are starting out are Codeforces and CodeChef. And yeah, you have something called as HackerRank also. So basically, HackerRank, Uh, the thing that I like in HackerRank and HackerEarth is they have problem statements. One second, let me just where that is, you have problem statements associated with each and every single concept. Like basically, you don't have to go and search the whole internet. Like where exactly can I find problems on stacks? No. Where exactly can I find problems on queues? That's not how it is. But in HackerRank, everything is actually where can I show you? Let me quickly show. Yeah, this is how we have. Everything is sort of structured format. Like you have it in arrays, you have things in linked list, you have things in trees, you have in stacks, queues, all this stuff. You can basically pick a category and you have the problems for that category. This is how I would like you to see. And coming to HackerEarth, this is actually interesting because HackerEarth is mainly, I mean, it's also a flavor of HackerRank only, but what I like in HackerEarth is these challenges. Basically, companies hire from this directly. Like, you, for example, take this something called, let's see, what do we have here? For A level start. Take this for example. Like this is some company hiring. They posted a hiring challenge on HackerEarth, and you do this challenge. You complete it. You basically get solve the problem statement that they given, and you will receive an interview opportunity, or at least you will receive a call from them asking for an interview or scheduling for an interview. This is one place where you can basically get interviews without even applying online also. Like yeah, you have several job portals, right? You have those Naukri.com, etc., etc., etc. But what I would really recommend you guys to take a look at is HackerEarth, the challenges over here. There are many companies that keep posting. For example, even Amazon posts their challenges over here. Amazon Development SE, Software Development Engineer. Many big companies, many product-based companies, many startups, they keep posting the challenges over here, and if in case you crack any challenge, you get interviews. I personally received many companies, many interviews from many companies from just solving these things. Yeah, you could for the first years or second years, even though it says you're not allowed, if you're not a final year, you just go ahead and give it a try. There's nothing wrong in giving it a try. And if in case you're contacted, you can at least get yourself an internship, if in case not a full-time employment opportunity. Yeah. So this is one thing. You can see this. They have some opening, like the Amazon guys, the AWS have some support engineer something. They have an open job, and you can basically start a challenge. You can go ahead and see the problems and see the answers and basically answer your solutions or something. And if in case they find your solutions good, you might get an opportunity. Who knows? This is actually the most reliable way that I would like you guys to know. HackerRank, HackerEarth, these are the places you can pretty much learn about it. And coming back, so what do you have? Portfolio. Yeah, this is the main thing that you should have on your resume. Like, if in case you don't have a single project on your resume, by the time you go out of your college, it doesn't look good, right? Like you are in your college for 4 years. You should have something to show for. Like what exactly did you do in these 4 years? You cannot just have your experiences column or internships column or projects column completely empty. That's completely unacceptable in this era. You cannot say I could not get an internship. I'm sorry, I was not able to do a project because I did not know how to do it. No, that's completely unacceptable. Right now, there are resources online where you can basically learn whatever you want to learn, and you can build your own project. You can showcase that on your profile and get opportunity even before you graduate itself from the college. And one fine way to go ahead with is portfolio. Like pick one thing, like basically pick something. For example, if you go with web development, pick a web development and create a simple project. It cannot, you don't have to build, a full-fledged application. No, that's not, nobody expects a person to build a full-fledged application when they're in college also, when they're a student. You build simple application. For example, you can create a simple to-do application wherein you store what you want to do each and every single day. You can make it you can just code it in JavaScript. You don't even need to have a database set up for it. You don't have to have a backend system ready for it. You can basically code the entire application in JavaScript and post it somewhere called as GitHub. And This is one thing I want you guys to know. Every person, every computer science person should definitely have something called as GitHub. This is what I recommend you guys to know. GitHub is the place where people post their projects, not just people, even organizations, like big organizations post their open source projects and everything. For example, if you see, um, there are projects hosted by Google, there are projects hosted by Facebook, React, all these stuff. They are basically posted on GitHub. You can build your project and you can put that on GitHub for people to see. And if people would like, they could actually, you know, who knows, they can actually send you a message that they are interested, and you can basically collaborate on the project and take it to some next level. That's actually really something good that you can put on your resume, or you can put on your LinkedIn profile. GitHub is one that you should be aware of when you are building your portfolios. You just can't start building your project and not put it on your GitHub profile. No, because if you don't put it on your GitHub profile, how can you say that in your interview or when a person asks you, I built so and so project, and if they ask for the proof, you can redirect them to your GitHub profile. Like, this is what I've done. You can please see it and give me a review comment. That's how you could basically explain people. GitHub is the one that goes a long way in your software career. Once you become a software engineer, you will be basically living off GitHub or GitLab or any other thing like this. Like, you write code every day and you push it to a platform like GitHub or GitLab. You basically live by it, and that's what you need to know. And the other thing that you should know about is Git. It's basically a version control system on which all the other websites are built. GitHub, GitLab, these are all, what do you say, how do you say, icing on the cakes. Basically, Git is the ones that you should be learning of, and GitHub, these are all the user interfaces, all the websites that run Git under the hood, basically. But the main thing you should be knowing about is Git, how exactly version control system works. Like, when you start developing your portfolio, this is your lifesaver. Git is your lifesaver. Why? Well, let's say today you built a simple HTML page, and tomorrow you built another HTML page, and the day after you build some other HTML page. If in case you keep doing this without any version control system, you don't know what exactly you built on what day. That's not something that you want for. When you build a project, you need to keep track of what is being done each and every single day, your effort going in each and every single day. A version control system like Git enables you to do that. It basically tracks into each and every single thing that you have done over the past time. Like, what are the changes? It even detects a simple space bar change or simple letter addition in your files, and it tells you, hey, this file has been changed and this letter has been added in this file, so and so. That's exactly what you want when you are building your portfolio, when you are building a project. You can have any sort of project. You can have a project in web development, you can have a simple project, or you can have a project in mobile. You can create a simple Android application, you can create a mobile app, or you can, what else do we have? You can build a machine learning model of the public data sets and showcase it on GitHub or somewhere, anywhere basically, and put it on your profile. So, portfolio, you should never ever have no portfolios on your resume. You should at least try to have three projects. By the time you graduate, you should basically have three projects on your portfolio, on your resume. That's how it should be. And the next thing is open source. So basically, open source, like the word says, there are companies or people who basically have developed softwares and made it public for people to use. I mean, all the softwares are public, but the source code of them, they are not public for each and every single software. But there are some softwares that are public to the world. Like, you can basically go to the code base, read the code base, try to understand that, and take that code base, do your modifications, and again push it as your own version. Like, that's exactly possible. What exactly open source does is, when you are in your school, or sorry, when you are in your college only, when you start learning what open source is, and when you start contributing to open source, you will basically have a taste of software industry even before you get into that. Because, as I said, open source projects are the ones built by the community, and community maintains the industry standards. Each and every single project follows some industry standards, and you will be aware of most of those industry standards by the time you get into a job. So that's where open source comes into picture. You can pick up a simple project, you can start contributing to that. If in case you want to find, you can just Google open source projects in GitHub, something like that. And there are filters that actually help you, and you can go and see what are the open source projects and pick up a project and take a normal project, clone it, and see the code base and do all the stuff. This might sound a bit overwhelming for you guys, but yeah, this is something worth checking out if in case you want to have a taste of software industry before even getting into it. That's one thing. And coming next, the main question that I keep getting is the job portals. Like, so I have learned this technology, I have built my portfolio, I have done this so and so, but I'm not getting any interview opportunities. I have registered on numerous websites and everything. People keep saying this. Well, you just can't expect people to send out invitations, right? They have to know that a person like you exists. And how can they be so sure like a person like you exists? You apply to jobs. Where exactly do you apply to jobs? There are websites like Naukri and all that stuff, but I personally don't recommend you guys Naukri and anything else. I would like you guys to take a look at these job portals. AngelList. This is a job portal where you can see the startup industries. Basically, many startup industries post their job applications. I'm sorry. There are many software industries that post their job applications on this platform. You basically see the job description, you see each and everything, you see the pay scale and everything, and you just go ahead and click on apply now or something. And in case your portfolio looks good for them, they will contact you back. And you can have your filters, you can specify the place that you want to work in. All these basic stuff are available in this portal. And that's one thing. You can just keep scrolling. You can keep scrolling and see the ones that you are actually interested in. That's AngelList. This is personal. This is my personal preference. If in case you want to go Naukri, yeah, you could go with Naukri, but that should not be your primary go-to thing. Like as everybody knows, you should never keep all your eggs in one single basket. Just keep them get distributed. Like another thing is called as what was that? InstaHire. Yeah. This is another one. Like okay, I'm not sure why I said this, but yes, this is another job portal, InstaHire. There is actually an Android application also for this. I'm not sure why it's not opening right now. There is an Android application also for InstaHire. That's also a job portal which I like pretty much. It's also sort of like AngelList website only, wherein you have really nice companies, you have product-based companies, you have startup companies, you have really big corporations, organizations like Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley and Amazon. All these people keep posting job notifications on these websites. As you can see, there are Walmart, all these really big websites that post on InstaHire, AngelList and all this. These are the platforms that you should be looking at if in case you are thinking of applying. And the next one thing is Indeed. This is also good. Like I don't say it's the brilliant order than this is also good. Like you could go ahead, create your own portfolio and see everything and do all what sort each and every operation you can have, and you can apply also. These are the personal preferences that I suggest you guys to take a look at. And yeah, has you can always have Naukri.com also, since that is what is actually famous. And there is some other thing called Internshala where you get some internships or anything. Yeah, I don't say it's the bad, but you could give it a try. You could actually give it a try. It never worked for me basically, but still you could actually give it a try to get your internships or something. These are the 4 job portals. And one other thing that I would like you guys to know is something called as Glassdoor. This should actually be your best friend. Why? Because when you search for a company, before you join a company, you need to know how exactly that company culture is and things. You can Google a company culture, but you can't be completely sure that company culture is the same as what you're seeing, right? So this is where Glassdoor comes into picture. You can see the salaries, you can see the company reviews, you can see the interview positions, right? All the stuff. For example, if in case you want to see the salaries of a software development engineer in let's say Microsoft. Let's find Microsoft. Say in Bangalore, and I think it will ask me to log in. Yeah. You can basically see the salaries of people working in different roles in different companies. This should actually be your best friend, and you can actually see the interviews also. Like what are the people who interviewed them, and what are the what do you say questions asked in them. These are all anonymous, so there is no way people can see that. So see, there is something the person posted the interview question, what he was asked, and people are just replying to that and the experiences in the company reviews. You can basically go ahead and see the company reviews also. In each and every single company, you can go ahead and see the company reviews for all the companies. That's how it works. Before you join a company, make sure you go through the interviews, you go through the salaries, you go through the reviews, you go through the benefits, all of that stuff. You can see the negatives of the company, you can see the positives of the company, all of that you can basically find from this website, Glassdoor website. And one other website that you should be knowing when you are trying to apply for a startup company is Crunchbase. Okay, what exactly is Crunchbase? I'll show you in a moment. So the main fear we have when we go to a startup company is, okay, will I get salary? Are they going to provide me salary? Are they going to fire me or something? Well, you can get rid of those fears by using this website called as Crunchbase. You can basically search for a startup company, you can or a normal company. Let's say Uber is a startup. Let's search for Uber. You can basically search for any company. Most of the companies are listed on this website. You can search for this company, and you can see all the related information for these companies, the people who founded it, and what are the parent organizations, what are the child organizations under this, what are all the stock prices, and how much funding did this company receive over the past time, and all that stuff. Like this is the funding amount that Uber has received over the past time since it has begun. Like you should use this when you are applying for a startup. You can go ahead and type that company name, and you will start. For example, let's see ShareChat. ShareChat is also a startup. Yeah, so you see this something $222 million is what it is funded. So this is a company that probably will not go down for a considerable amount of future, right? And you can see the technologies that are being used in these startup companies also. If you just scroll down, you can see the website tech stack and everything else. The technology is used by this and all other things. Where is exactly that? Website tech stack something. Yeah, you should be having something like this. This is a website you should be concerned if in case you are applying for a startup, right? Glassdoor for checking out the salaries, for checking out the reviews, for checking out the jobs. Yeah, you can apply through Glassdoor also, but it's not completely reliable. I can tell that it's not completely reliable. You should always try to apply through a job portal, and you can see the jobs also in Glassdoor and Crunchbase. It gives you the information about an organization that you are looking for. And what else is there? LinkedIn. I cannot stress this enough. Like any person that is looking to have a profession, not just software, not just a software profession. Any person that is looking to have get into the industry should have to get a job should have a LinkedIn profile. Like there are literally no exceptions that you should have to not have a LinkedIn profile but a Facebook profile. Your LinkedIn is as important as your Facebook profile once you start getting a job or once you start applying. To give you an overview of what LinkedIn is, I got my second job via LinkedIn only. I did not get my second job from any job portal because I was not applying much. I got my second job with a really good pay scale from LinkedIn itself. That's how important LinkedIn can be. Like you should create your profile, update all the information on LinkedIn, and basically start connecting with people and start messaging them. No, don't turn this into another texting site. It is actually for professionals. Keep the LinkedIn community professional only. Like build your profile, upload your resume, start sending out contacts and all that stuff. You can basically search for a person at different companies. For example, if you want to search for some people, let's say you want to search for some, let's say you want to search for some people working in Bangalore, and let's say in Google, you can always see like that. It will basically give you all those filters where people are working in Google, and you could connect with them, and you could actually express your concern that you're interested in joining their company. You could share them your profile, ask them feedback on it. Not everybody would reply. If you text 100 people, I think like 10 to 15 people might reply, but still that's worth a try. That like start texting people, start connecting with people and message them about your interest in their organization and the company, and see if they are open to give you a job opportunity and everything. And one other place where you can find jobs is LinkedIn jobs. This is really reliable. Like there are almost each and every single company that uses LinkedIn puts a job profile over here. This is how I got my second job. Like most of the big companies, they put their jobs over here. You can basically apply for example, let's say software development engineer for Amazon. You can basically apply for something like this, and it will prompt with a profile. You have to give it your profile. You have to give it your mail ID. You have to give it your resume. All these are just one single procedure. You apply with your resume, and they'll contact you if in case they find your resume appealing. That's how you should build your LinkedIn, like LinkedIn, and try to connect with as many people as possible, and try to have as much social networking as possible on LinkedIn, because in the end, the thing that mostly helps you after your job or when you are searching for a job, sorry, apart from the referrals, is LinkedIn. You basically get your referrals from LinkedIn itself. That's how important you should have a LinkedIn profile. Like try to build it from right from your first year itself. I made a bad mistake of building my LinkedIn profile at the end of the year. Just try not to commit that mistake. Right now I have my LinkedIn profile, everything set and good, but right now you should be having your own LinkedIn profile and send out the invitations and try to message people if in case you are stuck. Like I'm looking forward to transition myself into this. Can you suggest me something? Do you have some tips or so and so, so and so, so and so? That's how important LinkedIn is basically. And yeah, so I think we have covered most of the topics and stuff that are important that you should be knowing if in case you want to transition yourself into the software industry. Like you start with web development if you want, you become a mobile developer, you can become a cloud engineer, you can become a artificial intelligence enthusiast, all that sort of stuff. And then the path you need to go on, you need to learn algorithms and data structures, and then you need to participate in competitions like CodeChef, CodeSources, and HackerRank, HackerRank, all that thing. You basically get your interviews through other job portals and LinkedIn, and search for the companies on Glassdoor and Crunchbase, and then apply for them and take up the opportunity, crack your job, and yeah, you're settled. So that's exactly the gist of the whole session. Yeah. So if we have any queries, I'm open to take some Q&A questions if you have any right now. So yeah. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Raven. That was really a great webinar. I think all my co-aspirants have gained a mere knowledge.
Okay.
And my dear participants, now it's time for a Q&A session. If anyone have any doubts, please feel free to ask in the chat box or unmute yourself to ask questions. Anyone? In the meanwhile, I would like to invite our IndyCar IST IIC coordinator, Dr. Nandakumar Garu, to speak a few words.
So, this is Nandakumar, Dr. P. Nandakumar. So, I am the IIC president. So, I am very thankful for all the participants for attending the session webinar. So, we are actually, so this program was initiated since from, I was much interested in taking up this type of career growth, and also to develop the students with coding applications in practical application, which is useful for the practical applications. So that is what today everybody knows, that it happens to be that every product is what developing with coding only. So if you look into that washing machine or whatever maybe that IoT applications are there, or in soft computing applications are there. So so because of this only, So every student, even whatever may be the branch, whether it is a CSC or civil engineering, mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or electronics engineering. So coding language is what very important. So not only that, so today innovation is what essential. In the view of that, if anybody is interested to develop a innovative idea, so for that also coding knowledge is what very important. So for that, with that objective only we initiated this program. In that, in this view, I contacted some of the old students. So I am very thankful to Samir, who has helped me to have that Revant to hear, to have a session with him now today. So that is, I think so. Samir is also here with us. So he was the last year IAC student member. So I requested him, I asked him that you please suggest one of the senior student who can give the some more information about the coding languages for the practical applications. So that's what, in that initiation, I got him. Again, I asked Suresh sir to coordinate further. So I'm also thankful to Suresh and Samir. Before that, I'm very thankful for the Revant. Revant, you really delivered very nicely. So I never expected that you will be delivering in this scenario. So that is what you have given very good applications. So all the applications which are not aware of the students. So how to develop the web applications, mobile applications, IoT applications, how the coding languages you can develop. So this is what they can't learn within 1 hour, but they got some awareness, I think so. So I hope that one more session may be required with you to to gain knowledge something. So I hope that in future we will have the session. I would like to, I am very thankful for the management, Dr. So that is what our correspondent Ram Kumar Garu and director sir, our NBKRST director Dr. V. Vijay Kumar Reddy Garu. Thank you. I am very thankful for them for their giving support for conducting of this event, and also for the students who has worked voluntarily for this event to make success. So I am very thankful to you. Now I request Revant to make some conclusion, that is what, answering of the questions and answers for the English. So there may be some faculty also. So basically we concentrate for the innovative developers coding languages. So that is what, and also career applications also. So students, I request that please be you ask the questions. So Vaishnavi will be giving you mic, or you can chart. You can make a chart. So thank you, Vaishnavi, Suresh, and others. We are thank you, Vaishnavi.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. One from Ms. Shruti. What's the present coding language in Trend to Learn? So basically, I don't think that you can classify something as a coding language trend. Like, it comes down to the choice of preference, right? Like, some people like Java, for example. I like Java over any other language. Some people like Python, and some people like C#. And it basically comes down to what you want to learn, like, or what career path you want to choose in. For example, if you want to become a machine learning person, there is absolutely no reason for you to learn Java and Python. Python should be your go-to language. It comes like that. If you want to learn web development, you don't need to learn any other language apart from, you should learn Java or Python or Ruby or PHP or anything. You don't need to learn C or C++ to become a web developer. It's not something like that. So it comes down to your choice of preference. What is the trend? Sorry, what is the career choice that you are going with? And with that career choice, the language that you need to learn will become very clear. I don't believe in something called as this is the language that is currently trending. No, that's definitely not the case. You should pick up a career path and you should choose some language out of that. That's how exactly it should be. And okay, there is another question from Shanmuki, Miss Shanmuki. Okay, yeah, of course, obviously, right? Software industry, there are definitely jobs for each and every single person, regardless of what is the domain or the background they're coming from. I have seen people coming from mechanical engineering, printer media technology, or civil engineering, taking jobs in computer science. For example, there are people in my own office itself, people from different background domains, and people from different people who even did a normal degree also. They are currently taking the job. It doesn't come down to the domain you are having in. If you have talent, if you have the ability to prove yourself, you can get any job that you want, irrespective of you have a domain in MBA, or I'm just making this up, but even if you have an MBA also, you can still transition yourself into a software developer. There are people who have an MBA and still working as a software developer. It doesn't matter your engineering background. All you need to know is your skills, your portfolio, your stack. That's all you need to know to become a really to get a job. It doesn't matter it's CSE, ECE, civil, mechanical, nothing. That doesn't
Only
matter.
right there.
And do we have any other thing? Okay. We have one other question. How much is full stack developer really in demand? And we have websites like Wix. Yeah. Yeah. Alright. So that's something I missed. Yeah. We have some websites called as Wix.com and some other websites, WordPress, where you can build your own website. But how exactly will the customization be provided? For example, if you go to Wix.com, they provide some templates. They don't provide you each and every single customization.
చాలా బాగా చేశారమ్మా, బాగా బాగా వర్క్ చేశారమ్మా. ఫీడ్బ్యాక్ లింక్ గురించి చెప్పమ్మా ఒకసారి. ఫీడ్బ్యాక్ లింక్ స్టే విత్ us అని ఒక్కసారి సార్కి రిక్వెస్ట్ చేసి.
One second. Okay, so coming back to the question, yeah, you do have websites like Wix.com where you can build your own websites. But how exactly can you customize these websites? Yeah, they do give you a choice of preference. You can even code your own website in Wix.com only, but it's for small business people. If in case you have a small retail business or something and you don't want to pay for a developer, you don't want a full-fledged website, you don't want to start learning the website, start learning the language to develop a whole website, that's where you need to go ahead and use this Wix.com sort of a thing. But if in case, I'm pretty sure this can never replace the job that we are doing right now. It can never replace the job of a full stack developer. These free website building platforms, the Wix.com or any other thing, because it basically comes down to the choice of preference again. You can never have an automated bot like this to build your own website that could replace you. Yeah, you can build really good designs, that I'm pretty sure it can build really good designs than humans, but the functionality wise, it can never build the functionality that we have right now. You cannot have a backend API, or you cannot have any cloud service that connects to your Wix.com. Yeah, you can have, there are some plugins that does that for you, but that level of customization, it's virtually really hard to achieve something like that in Wix.com. That's one thing I would like you to say. You don't have to worry about Wix.com or something. You can try around. You can basically try around with Wix.com and see if that works your needs. If that works, yeah, good to go. You can do that. But no, it will never replace any of us. So full stack developer is never going out of trend. You don't need to worry about that. As I showed you already in the Stack Overflow survey, full stack developer are the most sought out role in the whole world. You can see that full stack developer are the most sought most people in the whole world are full stack developers only. Like 51% of the people that are registered on Stack Overflow are full stack developers. So you never have to worry about full stack developer going out of demand. Okay. So with my full stack developer from HTML, what are the other languages to be concentrated? Yeah, I told you.
Sir, just a
Sure.
small announcement. Everybody, after this session, we are going to send you a feedback form to everyone. Once you fill that feedback form, everyone will get their own e-certificate. And the one who are absent for this session, no need to get hurry. So this video will be uploaded into our official YouTube page called IIC NBKR ISD. You can watch it there and you can fill your feedback form and get your e-certificate. Thank you for the participation. Thank you, sir. Please continue.
Okay, so the next question is to become full stack developer apart from HTML, CSS, JavaScript, what other languages are you concentrated? Yeah, so I covered this in the beginning of my session. So you get started with HTML, CSS, learn the basics of them, and learn the basics of JavaScript, and start building very simple websites. You just go ahead and start building your own website. For example, build your own portfolio website, or build a website that basically shows what your like your resume. Build your own resume as a website. That's completely possible. People have done that. That's called as a portfolio page. Build your own portfolio page just using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then you should be looking to learn a backend language. Backend language in the sense you can go with Java or Python or Ruby or PHP or Node.js or any other thing. And once you learn the backend language, go dive deep into that and learn a library or a framework. For example, if you go with Java, you can learn something called a Spring Framework in Java. Learn this and you can start building the backend libraries also. And knowledge on database is a must. MySQL database or a NoSQL database like MongoDB, Cassandra, Redis, all that. And if in case you are a person who likes Python, you can go ahead and learn Django. This is a backend framework with Python for full stack development, and you can learn something called as Flask. This is a backend framework again using Python. If in case you want PHP, you have something called as Laravel, big one. This is actually a really big framework. But right now, I don't recommend you guys to learn PHP. Basically, pick between Java or Python or Node. Don't try to learn any other thing. And you can learn Node.js. This is the main sort of skill right now. More than Java, this is actually the most wanted skill, Node.js. There are frameworks in Node.js called as Express.js and many other things. I cannot tell how many frameworks and libraries are there in Node.js. There are millions and millions and millions of frameworks in Node.js that you can learn. It comes down to your preference again. What do you want to know? As I told you, there are two things: mean stack developer, MongoDB, Express.js, AngularJS, Node.js, or you can learn MERN stack, MongoDB, Express.js, React.js, and Node.js. These are the languages that you should learn after learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And you should basically have a knowledge with database also, like MySQL database or Oracle, normal MySQL, Oracle, or MongoDB or Cassandra, Redis. Any one database is necessary, and a cloud, something. Okay, is it better to go with present software trend or not? Well, I basically covered most of the software trends. It comes down to what is that you are actually interested to become. If you want to become a machine learning person, you can go with the AI trend. If you want to become a big data person, you go with the big data trend. So that's basically much of it. Okay, how to be front-end developer and what is the best language to learn for front-end? Yeah, as I told, if you want to become a front-end developer, you need to learn the basics of HTML, CSS, the most basics, and build a simple website, just a simple website, your portfolio, your resume. Build your own resume in website fashion. That actually is really good. You can put that on your resume itself. I built a resume, I built a website for my resume. You can put something like that, and you can host your resume on GitHub itself. You can put it to the world and learn JavaScript, and then learn something called as Mongo, these any other two things, mean stack developer or MERN stack developer or Java or Python or anything. Learn the framework like Spring or something. And just establish a startup company. Okay, that's exactly different, the whole different discussion. Startup company. If in case you really want to have a startup company, you should have an idea. And if in case you are looking to code it yourself, if in case you're trying to build the whole application yourself, yeah, you could go ahead, but I would suggest try to take help from people around you, your friends or your neighbors or some of your acquaintances. And once you launch that product, the place that will help you is LinkedIn. As I told you, LinkedIn is a place filled with people. Like each and every single person that is in the industry have LinkedIn profile. You can basically text entrepreneurs, or you can basically text the investors on LinkedIn itself. You can schedule some sessions, and you can give them a demo of your app and all that. And if they are interested, they will fund you, and there you have your own startup, Satya. That's how you can establish your own startup. Have an idea, take an idea that is not there in industry, take a unique idea, implement that in a sort of an application or something, host that, and then go to LinkedIn, pitch for investors or something. You actually have something called as meetup.com. If in case you are actually interested, there are some websites called yeah, meetup, and over here you have sessions, meetup sessions that happen across India. You can search for sessions that happen across any place. There are some sessions that happen each and every single week, like the startup sessions, the entrepreneur summits, and all that things. You can basically go over here and search for those sessions and attend them, and you can gain contacts with those entrepreneurs. You can text them, you can call, you can speak to them. That's how you can go ahead and establish yourself as a startup. Is it necessary that we must know assembly language to embedded system? Okay, embedded systems have never been my strong suit. I'm not completely sure about that, but yeah, if in case you're looking forward to becoming an assembly language developer, then yeah, I think you need to know that language is the assembly language. I've always been dreadful about that. I'm not completely good with assembly language. I barely passed my assembly language examination. So yeah, if in case you want to become a developer in that, you should learn that only. There is no other option for you. And I'm not sure about that career path. I'm sorry for that. But yeah, you could always ask Google, right? You could always ask Google the question that you want. There are people, I'm sure they would have people like you that would have asked the same question to Google and they would have got their answers, right? So that's exactly what you need to do. You should ask questions to Google and ask questions on the internet, no matter how stupid they are. Just ask questions. It's no problem even if your answer is wrong or right or something. How much of academics is really into these technologies? Okay, if you're coming from a computer science background, I would say like 80% of what is in your academics is in this only. Like the foundation, at least the foundation. For example, in your third semester, you have something called as advanced data structures. There you have advanced data structures, the whole thing, the thing where the interviews are based on. You are learning in your third semester, right? The whole concept of interviews is revolving around algorithms and data structures. You have another topic called design and analysis of algorithms that you learn in your third year, first semester, I think. There you go again. Your academics are actually helping you in your interview, but we never thought it of that way, right? We always saw that as a subject. Don't try to see it as a subject. They are what that help you in the future. For example, operating systems. These are the questions that actually are put you asked in the interview. They ask you questions on operating systems. Even operating system is we have it in our fourth semester. In our second year, second semester, we have operating systems, and we have one other thing, theory of computations. All that stuff we have. And yeah, academics play actually a very important role. If in case that's what you are asking for, academics is really important. But grades, I can openly say that grades are not completely important. I've never actually been a top ranker, but still I'm in a very successful role. But that doesn't mean you should go and start having backlogs. Okay, try to clear your don't have backlogs, but at the same time maintain your grades. It's okay if you don't have a 9 pointer or 8 pointer, but at least have a 7 pointer. Okay, people don't care if you have a backlog also. I've seen people who have 20, 30 backlogs and still working as really good web developer. I don't want to name them because they are my classmates only. So yeah, legacy language are not in trend. But what if I go on a legacy? I would not suggest you go with legacy programming languages because they are not in trend. And looking for a job for legacy language is also very tough. And if you're looking for transition after 5 years or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, the legacy language will already be out of industry. You would be jobless, right? I really don't suggest anybody to go with legacy language. Okay. No, I don't think that would be the case. But if you are really interested in some legacy language, if that is your passion, I will not stop you from that. If that really is your passion, you could go for that legacy language. But the job opportunity and the job market is going to be really less if in case you go with some legacy language. But I don't see a reason why you should not go if that is your passion, right? So yeah, that's my take on the legacy language thing. Okay. Yeah, I think I've answered most of the question. And one other thing, if in case you are actually looking to get some jobs when you are a student only, there are some websites called freelancing websites, some websites called as Upwork. These are the websites wherein you can get a job. You can do what do you say, part-time freelancing jobs when you are still a student only. This actually works. Most of my colleagues and most of my friends, they actually do a full-time job and they even do a part-time job and freelancing job like this also. That's some really good way to get some connections and everything else. You should get, but I warn you, you should have some skills before you apply for a job over here. People will not give you a job straight away. Okay? That's definitely not going to happen. People will post the jobs and people will bid for them. It's like a tender. When you build a project, you tender it for it, right? It's actually like that. Oh my God, I don't actually remember my password right now. Okay. Upwork is one website wherein you can basically search for freelancing job and everything else, right? And that's one thing. And on the way, if in case you want to learn, there are some YouTube channels called from like there are some people on YouTube that actually help you in transitioning your into the software industry. These people are actually my favorite guys. Like they are in really good position. They are working in Uber. One person is working in Uber. One person is an ex Microsoft employee now working in another big company and a top big four company in the world. These two people are the ones that basically help me out in in transitioning myself into a really good career. I would suggest you guys to check these people out. These two are Indians. Yeah, you have other people also like people called CS Dojo and all these people. These are all really good people who are in an intention of helping the community get a software industry job and all these things. Like we have something called as Code Academy and all these people. These are the YouTube channels that I would like you guys to take a look at and go through the things and everything else. If in case you are looking to transition yourself, this is one video that I would definitely want you guys to check out. This web development roadmap. What exactly you need to know to become a web developer. What exactly are the ones that you need to see to have a good career and all that stuff. This is a roadmap that you can basically see. Don't get overwhelmed by the roadmap because web development is not that as easy as it sounds. These are some of the things that you should basically be aware of if in case you are trying to become a web developer. Not everything, but at least most of the things that you should be aware of. Don't get overwhelmed by seeing this diagram. This is what is an umbrella model of a web developer. I can share this in the chat for you guys to take a look at what exactly is a web developer. Okay. Can I try for OS German? Yeah, you could go for OS German. That's not something that's out of industry. Yeah, you could go for OS German, but you should be really strong with the concepts of operating systems and networking. You should know how you should be familiar with shell scripting. You should be familiar with the concept of TCP, UDP, SSL, DNS, querying, and all these things. You can go with OS development also. That's also one thing. But yeah, I would suggest you guys to stick with the trend because after 5 to 10 years, I'm not sure what exactly will be the trend, right? Nobody can be so sure what exactly will be the trend. But if in case you are in the trend right now, that's a good thing. You can transition yourself whenever you are ready to transition yourself. If in case you are in the trend. But I don't see the trends that I have suggested that will go away in at least 20 to 30 years. These are going to stay for a long time, for a very long time. So I suggest you guys to pick one trend out of this, but not go with some of the different trends. But if in case those are your passion, by all means, please go for that. That's what gives you happiness, right? All right. Do we have any other questions, guys? I'll be sharing a link of this presentation also for you guys to just see what are the key points that I have covered. Not everything that I have covered is in this presentation. I tried to put most of the stuff that I covered in this presentation, but yeah, this should act as something. If in case any one of you have any other doubts or queries, you can always feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. That's my LinkedIn profile that I shared. Just send me out a connection and say that you have seen me over this session, and yeah, we should be good to go. I will help you out in any manner possible. Like this is my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to text me, and on LinkedIn, feel free to send me a connection. Feel free to drop me a hi message. We can have something out. We can have a conversation, right? All right. So I'll be waiting a couple of minutes or till 12 to see if any other question, or else we can give it to the other person, to the organization or the coordinator Suresh sir, so that they can take the session. I'll wait for a couple of minutes and then we hand over it to the organizers. In case you people have any doubts, please post them or unmute yourself and go ahead and ask them.
Participants, if you have any questions, you can ask. We'll close the session. Suresh?
Sir?
Yeah, okay. Revant,
Yes, sir.
hello Revant. Revant, you have given very nice delivery.
Thank you, sir.
So I never expected that you will be taking the session like that.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Students, you can share participants, you can share your view.
Sir, I think there's an echo coming from Suresh sir.
Okay. Vaishnavi,
I think we have one last question. I'll answer and take it out.
I think so. KSAD, one of the KSAD question you have not answered. That is full stack something.
I think I've answered most of them. Like each and every single one of them I've been through. What exactly is full stack development and how do we get through them? Like
Okay. If you have
conversation, yeah.
maybe I have not come across. One KSAD to become full stack developer apart from HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I think so. You have answered.
Yeah, I've answered that question. Okay, one last question we have is Microsoft Azure. Alright, so that's actually another competitor for AWS, Amazon Web Services. The cloud services, whatever you have, like storing your data in the cloud or creating virtual machines in the cloud or executing your code without a server. All these things are part of cloud computing and cloud services. The companies that offer cloud services are, as I told you, Amazon has AWS, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft has Azure. So that's what Azure does. They offer cloud services. Visual Studio is a code editor. Basically, Visual Studio is a code editor where you write your coding. Okay? You write your code in Visual Studio, but not in Notepad. Okay? I know we have written code in Notepad when we were in college, right? But no, don't try to use Notepad anymore. That's not what you want. Try to pick up an editor like Visual Studio or Sublime Text or Eclipse or WebStorm or any other code editor and try to do that. Yeah, that's what Visual Studio is and Microsoft Azure is. Cool, I think I've answered almost all the doubts, and if in case you have any other guys, I think I've answered this question already. The scope of web development, that's what the whole session has been about. Yeah, it will definitely be a very successful path. That's not going away for at least a foreseeable future is what I see. Web development will never go away, so you don't have to worry about the scope of web development. There are many tons and tons of job opportunities for web development. Virtual machines, I think we are getting into a whole different conversation. You can actually Google what exactly virtual machines are because that's not in the context of this meeting. So yeah, I would like, but to give you a very 1 minute answer of virtual machine, you basically spin up a new operating system. Like you can spin up a Ubuntu operating system in your Windows machine. That's what a virtual machine does, right? So yeah, cool. Okay guys, I think I've answered all the questions. If in case you have any other query, please feel free to reach me out on LinkedIn, drop a message and I'll take your questions there. Let's not prolong the session anymore and yeah, over to you organizer or Suresh.
Thank you, Ravan. You have given very wonderful suggestions and tips for the students. And hope that you enjoyed the session, all the participants. And first of all, thank you for registering and attending this session. And Vaishnavi conclude. Thanks.
Really a great interaction with you. All the students were really happy to learn something about, and I think this COVID has helped us in this manner to have a great webinar session, to have great interactions with the successful people. Firstly, I would like to thank our coordinator Suresh Babu sir for giving this opportunity, and then our IIC coordinator Nandakumar sir for creating such a great webinar. And I'm also thankful to our director Vijay Kumar sir and our correspondent Ram Kumar sir for allowing us to have such a great webinar with all the successful people around the world. And I would like to thank all the participants who have attended this session. And I think we have created a great, like a worthful interaction with them. I hope we can have many more such interactions with you people. And I feel immensely pleasure to have you all here in this. Thank you. Thank you for participating.
One more thing, Vaishnavi,
Sir,
about feedback form. So can you repeat?
okay, once again about the announcement regarding feedback form. We are going to send you a mail in a while which will contain the feedback form, link for the feedback form and the YouTube link of this session. Once if you get registered in that feedback form, automatically in a while you'll get your e-certificate to your registered email ID. So feel free to fill the form and get your e-certificate. And you can also see this session which is going to be uploaded in our official YouTube channel IIC NBCare ISP, and this will be uploaded. This session will be uploaded into that YouTube, and the link will also be shared to you. Thank you.
Okay, time limitation, Vaishnavi.
Sir,
Time limitation,
you can give your
One minute, sir. I can answer. This feedback form is kept open until 9 o'clock of evening. 9. No?
So all
Vaishnavi, right?
sir.
So up to 9 o'clock, the feedback form is kept open. After that, I automatically close. Those who registered through this form, and only they will get the certificate. Right, Vaishnavi?
Yes, sir. Whoever is registered in this feedback form, they are the only ones who are getting the e-certificate.
Time.
By 1 o'clock, the registration form will be open, and by today 9 p.m., this registration form will be closed.
Thank you, Vaishnavi.
Thank you, sir.
thanks to all the participants. Revan, once again, thank you. I'll speak to you later.
Sure, sir. Yeah, sure.
No, Vaishnavi, you can end the meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You can close.